VALCRI project, we've been looking at some cognitive issues related to police analysis. Specifically, we've been looking at sense making, which is about how people construct interpretations of information. Interpretation is probably a good word for sense making. We've been looking at cognitive bias, which is about how people systematically deviate from so-called norms of rationality. And we've also been looking at argument mapping, which is about externally representing the arguments of a case or of a situation in order to reflect and share and hopefully to mitigate some of those bias problems. And one of the first things we did was to define a set of guidelines, and this was intended to help the developers, to inform the developers, which would include things like allowing people to sort information easily into emerging themes, and also allowing people to identify deviations from patterns in data. So deviations from seasonal norms and that kind of thing.
Now, the sense-making triangle is a descriptive model describing the various aspects of how analysts think and reason through a case. Now, the triangle is divided into 3 different triangles that are very dynamic but very independent, working with one another. Now, the most inner triangle describes the inferencing process of analysts, and it covers deduction, induction and abduction. And what they found is that it's a very integrated process, and it depends, the type of inferencing depends on the analyst's prior experience, their knowledge, as well as the data that's available to them at that point in time. Now, the second set of studies that they've done moved on from this concept to the creation of the second triangle, and that triangle describes anchoring, associative questioning, and the concept of laddering. Now, anchoring is when the analysts use a particular data element in order to gain traction to move forward in the case. And if they don't have a data element, they can also use a non-data element. And that is usually referred to as an expert intuition or a hunch. And I will get back to that. So if we take all these different anchors and we link them together in order to enhance our understanding, that is called the process of laddering. And these two, the anchoring and the laddering, can't work without associative questioning. And associative questioning is, given X, what else is similar to X or like X? And when you combine those 3, you get the second triangle. And the last set of research that they've done is through Gerber, which is from Warsaw University in Poland. And she looked at how intuition and leap of faith actually helps the analyst to gain insights. And this is where we get back to that hunch, the expert hunch. And she has created a model that describes how the analyst actually goes through the process of looking at these different anchors and how they use their prior experience to actually have the intuition and the leaps of faith to get them to the actual insight that they generate. And this model also describes the way these 3 processes works together to transfer the analyst from a loose, uncertain story where there's gaps and uncertainty and move them along the way to a more rigorous and formal part of an argument.
The study we did was about movement data, and specifically about data on people meeting at a certain place at a certain time. And this is quite challenging, this combination of time-dependent data and location-based data. It's not so easy to visualize such kind of data. And this is interesting for intelligence analysis because sometimes you simply want to find out which people meet where and when. So this is, in this context, this is an interesting issue. And an intuitive solution would be to visualize this using maps, because maps represent geographical data, so location-based data can be shown by using maps. But actually this is a bit of a problem because you have a lot of clutter when you put time-oriented temporal data on top of the map. This becomes cluttered very quickly and you cannot see anything anymore. So our first solution was using maps, but this didn't really work very well. And then we developed 4 alternative solutions. One was a map solution which used pie charts. These pie charts showed how long people stayed in one place. Then we also developed a solution using Gantt charts and a normal matrix solution, and then an augmented matrix solution which also contained lines. The results of this study showed that map was really not a very good solution. We couldn't really use the map because people were really confused by this visualization based on a map. The best solution was the matrix solution. People liked that best, and they said they could work in a structured way with the matrix. And the augmented matrix was also quite good. People liked it, but some people didn't like it because it has lots of lines in it, and these lines also overlap sometimes, and this is also confusing for some people. So matrix and augmented matrix were quite good, and Gantt was so and so. It was people liked it, and the worst solution was the map. People couldn't make sense of the map visualization.